Hello, all you tarot viewers. Well, welcome to another adventure in the tarot zone. I love it. Love it. It's all real. All right. Well, anyway, I wanted to talk today. I wanted to mention that I'm going to be starting to looking at your comments. Everybody has comments. I appreciate all your comments. A lot of nice things being said. And that's all. I enjoy reading those. People have questions too in those comments. So I've been wanting to try to answer some of those questions in a YouTube. So your question might be one of the ones I look into and say that this would be a good thing to do. So anyway, I thought I'd start this one by just talking about what is a good tarot deck for you. There's so many tarot decks out there, and this is something I never had to deal with. When I was just starting out, I didn't have to deal with that. When I started out, there was just the Marseille. And that was in 1969. U.S. Games didn't come out with the Rider-Waite deck again until 1970. So it was a year later. And they also came out with the 1JJ Swiss. But otherwise, just tarot cards were just Marseille deck. Unless it was a novelty deck of some kind. But today, there's hundreds of different decks out there. And so the only thing I would tell you on that, if you like the deck, that's a good deck for you. I would try to, if you're just starting out, I would stay away from things that are really way out there, like Alice in Wonderland Tarot or Tarot of the Cat People. And they have Native American Tarot. That never made any sense to me. Native Americans were never involved with tarot cards. So you could take any theme and put it into tarot cards. I would suggest getting a deck that you like, and it's easy for you to identify the cards. And if you wanted to start with a Marseille deck, one thing I would tell you with that is you're working with pip cards then. Well, the other decks have a lot of artsy stuff on them, and that's always nice. But I think my feelings are, and I learned on a pip deck, the Marseille. And if you could read a Marseille deck, you can read any tarot deck. So if you really want to learn, be capable of using different decks, I would say start with a Marseille. But if you've got one of these off-the-wall odd decks, and you pick up any books you pick up on the tarot, they'll have a Rider deck in there or a Marseille or something like that in there, and your deck isn't going to match that. Makes it kind of more confusing as you're learning the cards. So the Rider deck is always a safe bet, and it's you could use the Rider deck professionally. I mean, I got it right here. I use it professionally. I use the Marseille professionally too. I use a lot of different decks professionally. Whatever just happens to be around is what I use. But I do prefer the Marseille. When I work at the Quest bookstore on Saturdays, I bring the Marseille deck with me. Usually, that's what I bring. Sometimes I bring something else. But the deck isn't really that important. What's important is the application, what you're doing with those cards. So really, people spend too much time focusing on the deck and the symbolism of the deck and all this other stuff. I never saw that being where the value of being a good reader isn't really in the deck you're using. That would be like saying to be a good carpenter, you should use Craftsman tools or Ace Hardware tools or Stanley tools instead of this tools or that tools, and that will allow you to make good do good carpentry work. And it's really the application, what you're doing with those tools is really what's important. And the same with the cards. So if you have a tarot deck that you're familiar with, you like it, then that allows you to improve now on your application. And that's really where it's at as far as reading well, not the cards, the application, how you do it. And that's where I think the trick is, really. You can spend a lot of time looking at symbolism as something that's going to spark you different ideas here and there and all that. I really don't think that's you'll find your own meanings. You'll see your own symbolism in things, and you'll as you read, depending on what question you're looking at and what person sitting across from you, what mood you're in that day, the things you'll see in that deck. So really, I don't think you're going to memorize different symbolism as something that's important. As far as classic decks go, yeah, the Rider's a classic, Marseille's a classic. One deck that I think that really stands out different than the others, as far as what I'm talking about, is the Thoth deck, Crowley's Thoth deck. It's a pip deck, but it's what makes the deck confusing is it's very artsy pip deck, for one thing. The other thing is, if you take a suit of, let's say, swords on that deck, each pip card looks different. So the swords will look different on the 3 of swords than they do on the 6 of swords, and they do on the 9 of swords. Each one, the swords themselves look different. Same with the cups. They're all going to look different depending on which card it is. And I think that was a mistake on their part. To do it that way. I know they decided to do it that way, but I'm just saying, I think that as far as, I shouldn't say it was a mistake. If you want to read with that deck, though, it makes it easier if the suit image is consistent all the way through from ace to 10. And it helps being a reader. So the Thoth deck doesn't do that. Still a good deck. You get familiar with it. It works just as good as any other deck. I know pro readers that use it. I use it now and then, but I don't use it that much. But I got a couple of them here. And it's a good deck. But there's a lot of good decks out there. And the artists today are really focusing on really making a unique look with nice pictures. It really doesn't make, it's not really that important. Think about what's important is I'm going to use this deck and how well I'm going to do with it. The image, the artwork, and the symbolism and all that is not really that important. It's what you're getting out of that deck and how you work with it. So the application is really what it's all about. That's that. I mean, you really want to, if one deck you get familiar with very well, that in your application that you develop after you know that deck is going to work out well for you. Now, the cards have no intelligence to them. It's just a tool. And that is something I think it's a good attitude to have with it. You want to do tarot readings, you need a tarot deck. And you want to be able to complete the reading with that deck in a way that the client's happy, you're happy, and that's what's important. You want them coming back for another reading when they need one. One thing I thought was interesting, like I said, we really go into the symbolism of the tarot, and it's not that important. It really neither is the meanings. You can, keyword meanings. I use keyword meanings in my books. I do show sentence definition meanings in my books too, just because that they're what people are used to seeing. But I think keyword meanings work better. That's another thing with the Thoth deck. They already have a keyword at the bottom of each card, what it means. And I don't think that's a good idea. But what a keyword does is it allows you to drift off into other words that could be used that might fit for this reading with the other cards. So it allows you to read fluently. You can start reading as you're just throwing down the cards. You're just starting to say, I see you're overcoming challenges to try to start a new beginning and tone things down. It's just thrown over 3 cards. 6 of Wands, Ace of Swords, and the 4 of Swords. So you just start talking where these cards work together. And you can fine tune it later on in the reading. But keywords allow you to do that. And so having a deck that you can recognize easily what the 6 of Swords, the Queen of Wands, Temperance card, Hangman card, whatever it happens to be, you know it just like that. So that allows you to do what really is important, develop a good application and technique on how you read. You're not going to impress them with the deck. You're going to impress them with what you say from that deck and what's in that reading. Whatever deck you like. But I would stay away from Edge. They got tarot baseball. You're not going to use that. You could, but it'd be a lot better for you to have one that fits better for everything. And also, if you want to read a book on tarot, it's nice if your cards can be related to that book's cards easily. And they don't have to be the same deck, but as long as we're talking about the pages of cups here, they're showing a page of cups from a different deck than what I have, but I can understand what they're talking about here. So anyway, whatever deck you like, today's the biggest challenge you got is deciding what deck to get. That's your tools. You gotta start out with something that you think you're going to stick with. So you'll probably end up buying a few decks, trying this one, trying that one, and bouncing different decks around. And if you're going to end up like me, after a while, you'll just you'll find yourself using a lot of different decks. But I know over the years, there have been times where maybe I'll use one deck for a whole year, maybe the Rider deck. And then the next year, I'll use a Marseille deck for a year. And another time I might use the Greer deck, Morgan Greer, something like that. And but I find myself as time went on, I always go back to what I learned with, which was the Marseille, or whatever is handy, I'll grab it. Here's the one JJ Swiss, whatever is handy. And you might do that too later on down the road. But you really need to first, as far as a starting point for learning, I think it's nice if you have if you're starting out, I would say start with a basic deck, one that's recognized by not unique. And most people, when they're starting out, they want a unique deck. You want to get a deck that is really highly recognized, not unique. Because if I pick up a book over here, or pick up a book over there, and I want to read more about tarot cards, it's nice if this book identifies with my deck very well. It just easy, makes it easier for me to understand what I'm reading. You can always get a unique deck later on, and that's that. The next tarot Zoom meeting is the 17th, Tuesday, and 12 o'clock Chicago time. Go to tarotmaps.com, link down below, and you can go right into the tarot meeting. Just a bunch of tarot readers getting together, talking, having a good time. And we might even talk about tarot cards. Might. There's a chance that could happen. But we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. I was having those meetings for those of you who didn't see my last Zoom. I was having them the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. This month, January 2023, I decided to go back to once a month Zoom meetings just for a while. So we're having it more in the middle of the month. And it was the 17th is what we decided on, which was the third Tuesday of the month. And not the second. That, along with the fact the server on my website went down on Tuesday. I didn't even know it, but they were having trouble with my site for some reason. And so people were going there thinking that might have been thinking there was a Zoom meeting going on, and there was nothing there, nowhere to link. But I think they all figured it out from Facebook then. But anyway, this month's meeting is 17th, 12 o'clock Chicago time. Come on by, we'll have a good time. And keep throwing cards. We'll talk soon. Bye.